Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolberger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East Update. It's the week of September 25th. And just a reminder that you can either click on the link here on the YouTube or go to our website at holygroundexplorations.com to access the accompanying PDF PowerPoint that goes along with this video presentation. So let's jump right in. We usually start with our news bites. A senior U.S. officer, or official, I should say, has alleged that Iran is resuming work with North Korea in order to enhance its development of long-range missiles. The source also suggested that the Islamic Republic could have enough material to construct a nuclear weapon within the next few months. As we know, both for Trump, the US, as well as Bibi and Israel, we know that this is a red line. Both have stated we will never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So we're going to start keeping our eye on this once again to see what's next, what transpires. Well, we're hearing a lot about the Abrahamic Accord, other countries that want to normalize their relationships with Israel. Honduras has come out to state that they will relocate their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem by the end of 2020. Again, continuing with just our news bites. Russia vows military cooperation with, are you ready for this? Iran. After the UN arms embargo ends, Russia says it will develop military cooperation with Tehran after a United Nations arms embargo on Iran expires next month. Very interesting. We have Iran, we have Russia, we have Turkey. We're really seeing the players of the Gog-Magog countries coming together, solidifying their military relationships with one another. And then finally, officials from the Palestinian Authority are stating that President Mahmoud Abbas is the head, the ruling faction of Fatah, and the Hamas terrorist group. They're set to meet in Istanbul, Turkey, of all places, for talks that are geared towards ending their 15-year-long rift. And there'll be more on that in a moment here, because this cauldron is beginning to bubble up when it's coming to the Abrahamic Accords, the normalization of other Arab countries, and Hamas, Turkey, Iran, and now the combination of putting Hamas and Fatah together and threatening physical violence. So we'll take a look at that again here in a moment. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to feel like God is trying to get my attention, our attention, the world's attention. When you think about Israel, this small sliver of land, when you think about their brilliance in technology in the medical field, would it surprise you if I told you that now they are the #1 nation in the world, the leading nation in regards to COVID cases, in a sense? I would think it would be just the opposite, right? This little sliver of the nation, and Israel is heading back into a complete lockdown, which will begin on Friday and likely to go through mid-October. Significance, we're talking about Yom Kippur, which would be Monday, that normally the country shuts down anyhow, but the majority will go to synagogue, and now that is not going to happen. And then a week from now, we begin the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkah, as Sukkot, in which, for a solid week, Israeli religious Jews will build their sukkahs outside and spend the week outside, and it's a community-wide gathering, and all of that is basically going to be shut down. Last night, after 8 hours of deliberations, the coronavirus cabinet made its recommendations, which were brought to a full cabinet late night vote, and the government approved the stricter measures. I spoke to a dear friend of mine in Israel who has been, kind of under lockdown for quite a few months now, and she just told me, I think we're finally getting it as a country. This is a war that we have to fight together. But like I said, what is God trying to say throughout this pandemic to us? We've got ears to hear. We should be listening. Well, the next article's on the United Arab Emirates. As this normalization process is happening, we're seeing the gap widening between the Palestinians and what were their Arab allies. This is a quote from the Islamic cleric Wasum Yosef. He says, Israel didn't destroy Syria. Israel did not burn Libya. Israel did not displace the people of Egypt. Israel did not destroy Libya. And Israel did not tear up Lebanon. Before you Arabs blame Israel, take a look at yourselves in the mirror. The problem is you. At this pace, Palestinians might wake up one morning to discover that they no longer have any friends in the Arab countries at all. Can you believe we're hearing this? And then the question is really, who's next? Sudan, Khartoum in Sudan, is among a number of Arab capitals that are considering following the footsteps of both the UAE and Bahrain by forging ties with the Jewish state. We're still hearing rumblings that the Saudis are not that far away. And meanwhile, Palestinian officials have expressed their concern that Qatar is also weighing established relationships with Israel. And so, again, one domino, two dominoes, and now who's next? Amazing days in which we're living. And since we mentioned Qatar, remember, this is the country that gives over $3 million a month to the Palestinians, who are saying, don't bank on this any longer. Basically, you're finding that the Arab nations are saying the time has come to start negotiations. If we're ever going to have a two-state solution, we must come to the table, and no longer are we going to allow Hamas, Fatah, or whatever to verbalize. Let's face it, they have said no, no, and no. And at this point in time, the question is when? So Qatar, a joint statement by U.S. and Qatar on the strategic dialogue that's raised tensions among the Palestinian Authority. Again, there's a growing number of people that are understanding that Qatar is becoming an important link in what? In the implementation of the American peace plan. And this is stated from a source in Ramallah. After lengthy contacts, I should say, between the U.S. and Qatar, they've issued a statement that recognizes that the American vision as a basis for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts is the direction and the movement that needs to be followed. And it appears Qatar is now in a hurry to join this normalization of relations. Well, on another note, we're dealing with, as we've said, that red line both Trump and Bibi have regarding Iranian nukes. Pompeo, our Secretary of State, says European allies haven't lifted a finger to block the weapons flow to Iran. A senior U.S. official said this last weekend that Iran may have enough weapons-grade uranium to make a bomb, an atomic bomb, by the end of the year. They also have noted that Iran has resumed working with North Korea to improve its long-range ballistic missiles. And so again, the threat, why? What's the threat? The US. Well, a couple more things before we go. Holocaust education. Did you know that 66% of millennials today don't know what Auschwitz is? Not only is their overall lack of the Holocaust troubling, but combined with the number of millennials in Generation Z who have seen Holocaust denial in social media, it's clear that it's time to fight this distortion of history. Again, the percentages are mind-boggling. 48% of people surveyed could not name one of the concentration or death camps that the Nazis instituted during the Holocaust. And many are actually believing that the Jews were the cause of the Holocaust, not the victims. Unbelievable. And this is the day in which we live. Never forget, and we will remember. Just some of the rhetoric coming from Fatah and Hamas in this supposedly alliance. Fatah, and think Abbas, Fatah is going to cooperate with Hamas, and here's their quote: "In armed struggle, Abbas declares that there will be no reservations about any action, including armed struggle." Hamas leader, Joint Palestinian Committee to develop the popular resistance, which may develop into a popular intifada. All possibilities are open. Violence, struggle in all of its forms, it's our right to do. And the goal of all of this is to restore the shine of the popular resistance and set it into motion towards becoming a comprehensive popular intifada. Hamas leader, we will never recognize Israel. What's before us is an armed struggle. It's a strategic choice. The new joint committee's quote: "We promise that we will not return the sword to the sheath. This is a revolution and a resistance until victory." Until victory. Sounds like a possibility of a peace plan, don't you think? Well, we're out of time. There's another article here on terror tunnels you can read about. And then I'll end with this. Make sure you take a look at slide number 12, a new license plate that's available from the state of Florida. That's right. Take a look right there, stamped upon the license plate. Florida stands with Israel. Again, signing legislation authorizing this initiative. I think I want one of those. How about you? Well, God bless. Shana Tova. As we end this 10 days of awe, we'll be coming up to Yom Kippur on Monday, and I'll see you next week. God bless.